Hey guys, welcome back to We Watch Movie. I'm Mike, he's Jay. We're reviewing The Amazing Spider-Man 2. If you haven't seen this movie yet, it is a spoiler review. We're going to spoil the shit out of it, so don't watch this if you haven't seen it yet. Please don't ruin it for yourself if you haven't seen this movie. But, okay, so starting out. We start out, they go back into the story about Spider-Man's dad, about Peter Parker's dad.
Parker, yeah.
They use some of the same footage from the first movie, and they go back through that whole thing where he left, and there's a plane fight, and shit goes down, and he's trying to save the computer or whatever. And they really dig deep into his history. And we'll get into that later, but they dig deep into his dad's history. But then, of course, automatically from the get-go, you got Spider-Man flying. That looks awesome. That whole scene is shot amazing, and you think, I mean, it's a kind of a letdown, really, because you see that first scene, and it's so fun, and it looks so good.
But that goes back to what we said in the non-spoiler review. They showed a lot of that in the trailer.
Yeah, so and a lot of it was in the trailer. But you think, wow, we're in for a treat. Hawaiian punch. But
Scooby snack.
But then they show the Rhino right away, and first off, I don't freaking like the Rhino at all.
No, you know what he looked like? He looked like a Hulkbuster that Tony Stark made, but he threw it away. It was like a rough sketch.
Well, even
it was like the fucking Rhino costume. It's like, I get it.
Well, I mean, they didn't show the costume
no,
first.
you mean, okay.
Yeah, okay. From the get-go.
Delete it. So we'll go backwards. Yeah, Paul Giamatti.
Enhance.
Stop it. Paul Giamatti. Yeah, Paul Giamatti is an amazing actor, so it's like you had a great actor and you didn't do shit with him. Like, is he supposed to? Is it a Russian or German accent that he uses?
We're gonna have Paul Giamatti in this movie, but he's just gonna be running rampant like a crazy person. He's going.
Yeah, but he was just like when he was in the drugs, like Spider-Man. Like it was just like, and he was sort of like, it's like, ha ha, I'm a pirate. It's like,
are you German? Are you what are you doing?
I don't know, but he had a really thick accent. He just came off as so stupid. And I know the Rhino in the comic books is dumb, but this really came off as dumb.
It's like someone shot Paul Giamatti up or gave him a Joffrey. If you've seen Get Into the Greek, that's a little throw in there. They gave him a Joffrey and just let him run in the streets, and he was just on the set, and they couldn't help but film him. You know,
but I did like the interaction that Spider-Man jumps in and he's like making fun of him, and he's like, "Let me hold that for you," and he's like taking his gun, and he pulls his pants down, and he like webs him up. Like that was classic Spider-Man, like
perfect
right
Spider-Man.
Off the fucking comic book page. You're like, ha ha, I'm a kid.
And then they went back to it.
They sort of touched on it. They flirted with it a little times, but
it was just like in the first movie. They had that one scene where Spider-Man's being a smart ass, he's in a suit, there's action, there's crazy stuff going on. This is gonna be great, and then they never really just honed in that much again. But that first scene was awesome. The action, even though you hated what they were doing with the Rhino, the action, it was fun. Yeah. Spider-Man was being a smart ass. It was freaking great. And then of course they move on and they start touching on the Peter Parker Gwen story, which was awesome. Yeah. That was the anchor of the whole movie. That was the best part about the whole movie. He goes back to the thing where he's seeing Dennis Leary everywhere. I wonder if they actually got Dennis Leary to just come in and go.
You know, that's funny because they actually get in the Dexter Showtime series, they actually get that guy to come back as a ghost every once in a while, the dad of Dexter, and he died. I don't remember, the guy's a great actor too, but anyway, yeah, I think he did stand in for that. I mean, what's he doing? I mean, it's Dennis Leary.
When you get back on the set, we just need you to stand ominously and be like,
you know, Dennis Leary probably keeps like that cop uniform around just because he was in Rescue Me, and he probably has like a cop uniform. He's like, yeah, I'll come in. I'm doing a show.
He's a fireman, but I see what you're saying.
So you couldn't tell, but yeah, he's always like a ghost, and he's always reminding Peter Parker, like, you said you'd keep my daughter out of this, and I told you to keep her out of this. So he feels guilt, and he's like, I don't know, Gwen.
He's struggling with that, and then they show the graduation, and that whole, just everything between those two was awesome. And then, Mark Waid did the 500 Days of Summer movie, which is a really good romantic story, and then everybody's kind of confused, how did you get Spider-Man? When did that happen? And maybe that's why that part of this movie is so good, and other stuff of it's kind of here and there. But I gotta say, I love what they did there. The scene towards the end, I'm skipping ahead here, I'll go back. The scene where he's on top of the bridge and he's like, I go everywhere you go, and all that shit like that. Even though the whole movie they had turmoil between them, was really great. That was well written, that was awesome. I love what they did between the two of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, as dudes, you don't normally hear that, but it was romantic. It really was. They built up the romance part of it, and it was good, and the chemistry was there, and...
Hold me. Don't.
Hold me now. Yeah, but the romance was there. The good feelings that you could sense between the two, like and like the love, I guess. I'm sorry, it really was. You're like, I like it. I like it. You gotta have those little moments. It
was well made. But and then of course, you go into the Electro story, and I really hated what they did with the Electro in the beginning. I liked the way he looked and the way he fought and stuff like that once he got going. But Jamie Foxx, the scene where he initially met him was funny. He's like looking at his hair, going back. That was good. But then Jamie Foxx, I mean, how many times are you gonna do the Riddler story? Like
that's exactly what it was.
Oh, I'm obsessed with him. I'm in love with Spider-Man, and I'm crazy about him. And it's just it came off hokey and corny. Yeah. It came off just like Jim Carrey in Batman Forever.
It did, because the whole thing before Electro becomes, or Max Dillon's still human, he comes off as corny as a fucking Urkel. Like, even the music when he's walking, it's like, you're like, this is so fucking dumb. And he's like, he goes, how would it be to be a hero? And he's like looking at Spider-Man, he's like, you think he's fucking jacking his dick to him, and he's like watching on the screen, he's like, ah.
You know it was my birthday.
Yeah, I was like,
I didn't know it was your birthday.
Yeah, he's like an obsessed fan that takes it way too far, and that it is Riddlerish. But even with Jim Carrey, though, as Riddler, it made sense because it's Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Jamie Foxx, I don't know. It didn't come across as
wasted a really great actor.
Yeah.
And then ultimately what they did. But once he becomes Electro, he looks cool. He looks amazing, even though I couldn't help but think of the Blue Man in Watchmen. Every time they showed him.
Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
But his little winky wasn't anything else.
But they did do a really good job with him. And Jamie Foxx is a good actor. He pulled it off as best as he could. But I love the way Electro looked and fought and shit like that. They did a good job with the special effects in this movie when they used it were amazing. But the whole middle of the movie sags, and that's when you get into the Osborn story.
Yeah, let's talk about that really quick. I don't know where the fuck they keep on thinking.
I don't care. I love it.
But I don't. The thing is, Norman Osborn is dying, and you guys have seen that in the trailer. Again, they give that all away.
Yeah.
Norman Osborn's dying. He tells Harry Osborn basically, like, Norman Osborn's skin is going green, like he's dying of some kind of disease. He calls it the Osborn curse, and it only affects their bloodline. And he's telling Harry, "You're gonna die a horrible death." So Harry, sets out to try to find Spider-Man to get blood for the cure him because. I don't understand. Like, Norman Osborn is like the epitome of the villain for Spider-Man. And then they just say, fuck that, go to Harry, okay, that's stupid. Because the whole thing, they could have built up Norman. Norman does fight Spider-Man for a long time. Yeah, and then Harry finally becomes Spider-Man, but that's after, Harry Osborn finally becomes Green Goblin to fight Spider-Man, but that's after Harry and him kind of, become really good friends. And in this movie, it's like Harry Osborn hasn't seen Peter Parker for 10 years, so they've been friends for a long time. But you didn't know that. I mean, they just kind of it kind of does feel shoehorned sometimes because he just walks in, he's like Harry Osborn. He's like, I haven't seen you in 10 years. What's up, bro?
It was a shock because I don't know, we're like, oh, you guys were best friends. But they played that well. They did the writing well to it. But then again, like Chris Cooper, Norman Osborn, you wasted a great resource and asset that you had there. And I get during the first 3 Spider-Man movies, yeah, I was tired of hearing James Franco, even though I like James Franco bitching like Spider-Man coming down. Yeah. I got tired of that too. So I get why they would want to bypass that a little bit, but they still ended up doing the same thing. He's like, he won't give me his blood. I hate him.
But the thing is with this Harry Osborn versus James Franco Harry Osborn, this Harry Osborn was a lot more villainous.
He's deeper
to begin, and that could have hurt it deeper. And how far are we going to go with
deeper
into the cave?
But
it was like, and maybe he was the actor's great. I love the guy that played him, but maybe he was a little bit too even more villainous than he should have been before he became
from the get-go.
Yeah, he was just like diabolical. He's
even though Dane DeHaan, he did do a great job.
Yeah, but when he's sitting at the board meeting after Norman dies, and he's like, "It's Mr. Osborn." And by the way, and then he's like, the secretary Felicia Hardy, known as the Black Cat.
Yeah,
she's in it, so that's pretty cool.
Well, but it's just into the imagination. They're just like, boom, here it is in your face. Like I would have liked to have been teased a little bit first.
I do like the I know it's like
I don't just walk up to my wife and throw down her pants,
Then it'd be Game of Thrones. But it could have been a little. Wow. What kind of beer did you have?
Stay out of my life!
But he could have been built up a little bit further than what they did. And I will say, though, the thing about Harry Osborn when he becomes Green Goblin, I do like that. I like the way he looked in it. I think he looked fucking scary as shit. Maybe not like over-the-top scary, but a lot more creepy than the friggin' bubblehead mantis Green Goblin.
I would say for the stills and stuff, it looked corny, but it looked good when that's once they did it.
Yeah. So no, you kind of sense the there is a scene where Peter Parker and Harry Osborn just go and kind of hit the town a little bit, and they're kind of catching up and what's going on with them, and you kind of sense the friendship between them.
Yeah.
But it never really got to the point where you're like, oh, they're really good friends. This is tearing up Peter Parker.
Yeah.
To do this.
It's the whole middle of the movie just sagged. Like he always used the phrase "soggy diaper." It was like a soggy diaper. It started out great with a bang, and then the story in the middle is great if you can do it right. Captain America 2: Winter Soldier, the way they did that, because they had all these amazing tie-ins, and it was really cool. They changed the landscape and everything the way they did that. In this, the story just sagged the middle down because it was just generic stuff. It wasn't nothing new. It wasn't nothing great. It was just like, okay, we're moving through the motions, much like the first movie. And I think Mark Webb has a real problem with pizzazzing, for lack of a better word,
magicianing it up.
Yeah, superhero storyline.
Yeah.
He has a real job with just upping it and making it we all know that happened. You got to make it cooler. You got to make it funner, and he really didn't do that. Just like with the villains, the story weighed him down. He couldn't do enough with the villains. But then ultimately, we get to the point where the battle scene's finally going to happen. Shit's already going wrong. And it just, Electro just he's gone. They
had a decent battle sequence between Spider-Man and Electro, but it's it could have had a little bit more going with it. And the way that Harry Osborn recruits Electro to help him it's kind of like it's just I don't know, it's just so fast. Like, you know, Electro's like, how can I trust you? He said, because I need you. You know, and he's like, you need me. You need me. Like, it's just like, okay, like, you know, if anything else, Max Dillon, I know he's kind of a fuck up and he's crazy, but at the same time, like, you know, he's been used already, or he thinks he has been by Spider-Man, because Spider-Man saved him when he was Max Dillon, and he thinks that Spider-Man betrayed him. But now he's just automatically going to trust Harry Osborn. By the way, Osborn Tower or Osborn Corporation is keeping him underground, experimenting on him, but he's going to trust the guy that's supposedly in charge, even though Harry Osborn says, I've been fired from my company, and I need your help. Yeah, it's just like you're that trusting, you dumb shit. I was like, you have electric powers, and you're like, yeah, okay.
They got to the point where they're like, oh shit, we've already used this much running time, and we've already got to do all this shit.
I think that's exactly what happened. I think that Mark Webb had a good grand design on how he wanted to tell these villain stories, but he just ran out of time.
He needed a smaller canvas, and that's really what the thing that goes in this. And of course, the big question of the day: does Gwen Stacy die? Yep. Yes, Gwen Stacy dies.
She's dead. And that was good. I did like the emotional scene of that.
And they actually, like you said, they actually did it the way they did it.
Just like,
it wasn't like exactly a neck snap, but the way he did it, he was trying to save her.
No, her neck did snap.
Well, yeah, but I mean, she hit the ground too.
Yeah,
and that whole thing, but. The emotional seems good.
Yeah, the only difference that they didn't have was it wasn't taking place at the Brooklyn Bridge. It took place in the tower, like a clock tower, and he pulls her up and snaps her neck. And then that scene was good because when he comes down, you can see the emotion. And Garfield really portrays that really well, like how he's feeling this loss, and they show him at her graveside for the seasons, and the seasons are changing. And
even that scene goes by too quick because it's like he's just standing in front of the grave, and instead of like doing anything like by its normal sort of progression, we're gonna do a time lapse, and you're gonna be standing there, and there's gonna be snow, and then rain, and then winter, and then fall. It's just seemed like even that great big moment, even though you had the actors pulled it all. It's like the actors saved the director. Really, they did a great job with the emotion in that scene, and then he had to rush through it to get to the next point.
I think maybe Mark Webb's the biggest strength that Mark Webb has in this movie is that his concentration and his ability to portray the humanistic side of Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy and all that part. Maybe not as grade A as it could be with the superhero parts, but when it's down on Earth and it's just like you and me, how we're figuring this out as humans and dealing with these relationships and what's going on, I think he does a pretty good job.
But then you got the sense he had to rush all that too.
Yeah, he does, because I think that's where you come in with all these directors, that they come in and they take these big giant superhero franchises, like there's all these awesome villains, but I gotta do all this and I gotta do this, and they just get overwhelmed. They're like, holy fuck, when does it stop?
And where, I mean, we give DC shit because they're not doing enough of what Marvel's doing, but at the same time, Sony's trying to copy Marvel a little bit too much. Yeah. They're trying to like, oh, we're gonna tie in this. People are gonna freak out just like they do about everything else.
I didn't care.
When they show at the end of the movie, they show he's walking through, and then you see the Vulture's costume, and you see Doc Ock, and you hear the hints at Sinister Six, and it's like, for one, you guys told us this in the news. We knew all this stuff was coming up anyway. It's not a big shock. You're not doing anything great. And they just kind of cornied it up a little bit. It was just kind of like, hey, by the way, I know you guys want these Easter eggs, so we're going to throw them at your face.
They kind of did that. They did this.
Focus on this movie.
They copied not just Marvel, the overall scheme of what Marvel's doing. They copied almost, I think, specifically a movie, Thor. Because in Thor, when he's walking through the... trophy cases, you see the Infinity Gauntlet, hand, and then you all see. But that was done in such a low key way. You're like, that's the Cosmic Cube, and that's the Gauntlet. This was like, look here, you've got to see this.
When they just fucking throw it at you and hand it to you, there's nothing special.
And it's not. I have no problems with Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man's got an amazing roster of villains, just like Batman does. But at the same time, I think that I don't give that much of a shit about Sinister Six. Like, I really don't. I think it would be badass to see him in a Spider-Man movie with them, but at the same time with Sinister Six, like a movie by itself, which is like, I think the Vulture's fucking stupid. I've never liked the Vulture.
I give a shit.
I love Dr. Octopus. Vulture's stupid. I'm sorry.
I can see caring about it. The thing is that like you just got through having a copy and paste from the other movies and tell that story again, and now instead of getting the good fat in the middle, like your own story, your own thing, you're gonna jump ahead.
The steak's not done.
Yeah, you're gonna jump ahead and do all this shit. Like, I would care more about the Vulture and Sinister Six and things like that if you would focus on the story you're doing now. Let me get invested in that for a fucking second before you just take it out of my hands and go, here's this new shit. I don't
want to give me people like hate on me. Look, the Vulture is okay. He has his place in the Spider-Man, rivals. But if you look at Vulture compared to like Dr. Octopus, Green Goblin, Electro, Doppelganger, Carnage, Venom, like that kind of shit, like he doesn't stack up well. I mean, I would love I know it will be cliche, and I know people are like, oh well, that's expected, but it would have been even cooler to see Carnage or Venom at some point in the movie, or
they're going to do something with it, like they might announce it, but still, I see what you're saying.
But you know what?
It's way more exciting.
And I'll say really quick before we're done, the elements that they used in this movie. they borrowed really heavily from Ultimate Spider-Man comic books. The whole thing, when Spider-Man or Peter Parker discovers that little underground bunker or train station, he finds out that Richard Parker had injected his own blood into the spiders that bit Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that's Ultimate Spider-Man. And you know how that goes. And Green Goblin's actually a goblin. Like the sickness that causes that, it's actually a goblin. So they borrowed really a lot from the Ultimate Spider-Man series.
Yeah.
But they injected some original stuff to it. I mean, from the main storyline from Amazing Spider-Man. So I mean, I think that they borrowed too much and they tried to blend it too, like they just couldn't blend it that well.
Yeah.
I mean, but I don't know. I never really liked the Ultimate Spider-Man was fun. I get it. I liked it, but I never liked the whole thing with it was genetically engineered and the spider was always, Richard Parker had something to do with it. I'm like, I kind of like the idea that Peter Parker got bit by like a happy accident and he became Spider-Man.
I see that too. And then of course you got the after credit scene, this complete joke. Again, this is spoiler reviewers just say they had an X-Men trailer in it. The only
midway to the credits. It wasn't even after all the credits.
The only new nugget that they threw in there was Mystique says at one point in the middle of the battle, they're like, "Where's Magneto?" or "Where's Eric?" And she's like, "I'm on my own now." So they gave away a little bit there, but other than that, it was just like a random let's throw some X-Men shit.
Like, what are we supposed to think? Does that mean like? Is 20th Century doing something with fucking... I mean, it would have been cool. I mean, then you could have tied it in. Maybe if Mystique had pulled out a phone and had been like Harry Osborn on the phone. And been like, come to Manhattan.
That would have been huge.
Yeah,
it was
like totally.
It was a tease, only you didn't get anything after you got punched in the nuts because they're not doing any kind of crossovers. Yeah. There's nothing in the works. I mean, it was like X-Men was like, hey, you remember when you lost that bet?
Oh yeah,
we put our trailer in that fucking movie somehow.
Really quick too, Electro, we don't know if he's dead. Because they overcharge him. I don't think he's dead, but I mean they do overcharge him. He explodes or whatever, and then Harry Osborn gets captured after he doesn't really kill Gwen Stacy. He unintentionally has something to do with it.
Yeah.
But he's captured, and that's when the whole Sinister Six comes in because this really mysterious guy and how it's so cliche. He comes in with his little top hat and you can't see his face. He's like, this guy, he wants to join.
It's like Rorschach.
Yeah, he's like, this guy wants to join. And so that goes into Sinister Six. And by the way, one other little guy that's because you guys always accuse us of never talking about Easter eggs. One other guy that's mentioned is Smythe. You remember Smythe from the cartoon series, and I think he was in the comic books, the one that creates the Spider Slayers. He's in the movie, so that's pretty cool. I mean,
I'm also ready to see J. Jonah Jameson. When's that?
Yeah, it's funny because they mentioned
I think they know that J.K. Simmons was the shit, and they can't touch that.
Well, they can because J.K. Simmons never said that he couldn't come back and do another one.
But so at the end of the day, ultimately, as a whole, I think that they did a really great job with Peter and Gwen. I thought the emotional story was great. I actually teared up at one point between Peter and Aunt May. I thought that was really good. The scene between him and Gwen was awesome. They did a great job with that. I love Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, and I think that the beginning scene and the end scene, the action was amazing. It looked great. It was shot well. They showed too much of it in the trailers, though, and the middle of the movie sagged too much. Mark Webb had just a little bit too much on his plate, but ultimately, it's not a mind-blowing movie. It's not as great as it could have been.
It's not The Matrix.
But it's still a really strong movie, and it's fun to watch. It's a strong 7.5 for me.
Yeah, I'm going to give it an 8.0. It's like kind of having sex, and it feels good, and you're ready to go, but you go. And you do your business, you horny Randy fucker. But at the end of the day, there's no orgasm at the end. You're like, well, it was good. I've had better.
I think there's an orgasm, but it's not one you really remember.
It's like one of those orgasms that you have, and you're kind of like, and she's like, was it good? And like, yeah.
I mean, we did it.
And then you go outside and you smoke, and then you're like, well, I wish I could have got more. It's like, I wish I could have had a better reaction to it. Yeah. I mean, but it's still a good, enjoyable comic book movie. I mean, there's nothing about it that's like blaringly wrong.
It's not fucking Batman and Robin like people say.
Yeah, that pisses me off. I don't even want to get into the debate. I wish I could find the fucking guy that said that and be like, why in the heck are you saying that? Because it's just that whoever said that is
overkill.
Yeah. It's not it's not up to the par of Avengers. It's not up to the par of Captain America 2. It's not even really up to the par maybe of Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, and really quick, Rhino's suit, they shoehorned him in there. I hated the suit too.
Did you know what? I think that really, if you're talking about shoehorning, there was a couple of scenes that were shoehorned.
Yeah.
Like it was, and that probably came down to running out of time. Like we didn't have time to do it.
Really what it
and
was.
Speaking of running out of time, I think that wraps this up.
So guys, what did you think? Do you think it ended up being villain overkill? Did you think the Rhino was just way too much? What did you guys think about Amazing Spider-Man 2? Give us your rating below. And ultimately, like we asked in the regular non-spoiler review, who do you pick now that we've had two movies to look at? Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire? For me, it's Andrew Garfield. I think he's just way more real world. I can relate to him a lot more, and I liked him better.
Maguire fits the what they're doing with this Spider-Man universe a lot better than what Maguire could fit in. He has that superhero, comic booky, sometimes hokey, but not over the top hokiness that make it work. Maguire was more like, if this, more experienced, I've done this a long time, I know what to expect, and not really lighthearted enough anymore. Garfield really says, I've got spider powers, I'm enjoying it, these fuckers really can't hurt me, and I'm going to make fun of them while I'm taking them out.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, yeah.
And also, just to throw another one out there, who do you guys think should play Mary Jane in Amazing Spider-Man 3?
They picked that girl from...
Shailene Woodley, yeah, and then they cut her out.
She said she was ugly. She was alright looking, though.
I like her. I think she's hot. I would take that home after a nice steak dinner. I'm Mike. He's Jay. We'll see you guys next time we watch
Sushi.
The movie.
We watched a movie.